welcome to Turn the Page, the official podcast of the Syosset Public Library.
Hi, this is Jessica with Syosset Library's Turn the Page podcast. I will be your host today for this interview with an author who wrote a book that I can't stop thinking about. It was so good in so many ways and creeped me out appropriately for many reasons. Yeah, you know what? I'm just going to invite you to introduce yourself and tell us about TRAD Wife.
Yeah, thank you for having me. First of all, I'm very excited to be here. My name is Saratoga Schaefer. My pronouns are they, them, and I wrote TRAD Wife, which comes out in February and is a horror novel about a TRAD wife influencer who is desperate to have a baby. So she enlists the help of a creature she finds in a well on her property and has a very demonic, very hungry baby.
It's such a good book, and there's a lot of layers to it. While I was reading it, it was so funny because like I had a moment where I was almost wondering where certain things were going, and I'm like, this has a very Rosemary's Baby feel to it. Um, but in this particular case, although in Rosemary's Baby also, like, the husband is not great at all. And here as well, Camille, who is the main character, our trad wife, she is married to this guy who has this job and he's always busy with it, and she has decided she wants to be a trad wife influencer, like one of her icons who she follows, and her whole life is around emulating this person partially, but also like getting this person to follow her. And, it's just, it's such a, it, to me, it seems sort of crazy, but it's a very real phenomenon that seems to be happening now. Um, and yeah, as you said, she's struggling to have a child, which, if you are familiar with any of these influencers, they make it look so easy and appealing, I suppose, depending on your feelings about certain things. But that's, as somebody who's a mother myself, it is so unrealistic. And whether or not you want to say their lives are appealing, I suppose is up to you. But it is all a show. And Camille really seems to buy into it. And there's so many reasons why. Part of it is how she was raised. And part of it is a need for validation that she's just not getting anywhere else. So, what I wanted to know, I guess, first is where did the idea for this whole story come from for you, and how did it develop from there?
Yeah, I have been kind of peripherally aware of the growing rise of trad wives in our society for a couple of years now. I was never doing any kind of like deep dives. I wasn't following any of them, nothing like that. But it was something where they kept going viral for various reasons. So I was aware of it and I was kind of interested in just what the heck this was and why this was an appealing lifestyle choice for people, and also specifically why this lifestyle seemed to draw younger women. So I was kind of thinking on this for a while, just in the back of my brain. And then about a year-ish ago, because this all happened kind of quickly, I was talking to my sister over text, and I had made a comment about tradwives, and she was like, "Oh, what's that?" And I was like, "Where have you been?" And just kind of in the process of explaining to her what they are and what they do, ended up pitching her this idea for a book at the same time. And then a week later started writing it because I couldn't get it out of my head. So yeah, it happened kind of quickly. I wrote it very fast. It was very fun to write. It was probably the easiest time I've ever had writing a book, which is saying something. And yeah, it was just that kind of cultural moment that I really wanted to explore and get into, and specifically explore from the point of view of a trad wife and why somebody would be drawn to that lifestyle, what it would look like if that lifestyle was suddenly not picture perfect, and especially what it would look like if you add a very intense horror element to that lifestyle, and how would somebody react to that. And Trad Wife is mostly an exploration of Camille, who's the main character, and her journey in that way throughout the novel.
Yeah, and I think like one of the things I like the most about it is, and you do this so well, is how isolating it feels. Um, and I think that that is sort of like one of the things that makes the horror even better. You know, Camille is, again, her husband Graham, he works this job where he's able to get out of the house, probably a little bit more than, you know, he should be, because he doesn't seem to be in the house, even though this is supposed to be, the lifestyle they're cultivating. He doesn't seem to really be present at all for any of this while holding Camille to these standards. And they're like in the middle of, where is it set again?
So I intentionally didn't actually set it anywhere. It's
Okay,
supposed to
you
be,
know what? I
yeah.
had that blip in my mind. I'm like, wait, was it the Midwest? Where was this?
Yeah, it's hinted that it's in 400 miles or something like that from Utah, which is where the huge influencer lives that Camille is like obsessed with. But yeah, I intentionally made it vague so that it could kind of be anywhere in America a little bit. So you don't really know where they are. It's just that Camille lives in a wheat field in the middle of nowhere, basically.
And she spends a lot of time, again, with this sort of parasocial relationship she's having, not only with this influencer, but also with people she wants to follow her, while at the same time obsessing over when she's going to get pregnant and why her husband isn't coming home. So there's a lot of disconnect. There's also a woman next door who who tries to befriend her, and through that, you start to learn a little bit more about Camille's background, which becomes even more fascinating when you see where she's ended up. But I don't really want to talk too much about that because I feel like that's kind of part of figuring out the book. But yeah, she does she does make this wish to some creature in a well. Um, what it is up for interpretation, and I loved that too. But yeah, she gets what she might, well, what is it? You can't always get what you want, but sometimes you get what you need. And in a way, she kind of does. She gives birth to this child who's always hungry. But what I really like about it is that through this, you really do explore the standards that are put on these people, and how, while, influencer culture in general is a show, right? I mean, no matter what you're doing, there's a lot of production that goes into it. And if you don't have the support and the money, even if you're trying to sell yourself as a trad wife to support this lifestyle, it all kind of starts to come down. And it does for Camille as well, while she's, trying to like reel her husband back in. Um, I mean, so when you were looking to this, were you looking at any specific, you don't have to call anybody out by name because we don't want to go there, but were there specific influencers that you started to research? Were there articles, rabbit holes that you went down?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely researched just the trad wife movement, for lack of a better term, in general, and read a lot of think pieces about, you know, this rise of trad wives and this return to quote unquote traditional gender roles. And that was all super interesting. But I think the thing that I was most drawn to was, as you say, A, the social media aspect, and then B, the relationship aspect. So in doing some research into some of the bigger tradwife accounts out there, I thought it was always very interesting how there was either A, this hint or perhaps outright acknowledgement of generational wealth, and that part of the reason they can do these things and support themselves in this manner is because they have a ton of money. And the other thing that kept cropping up was this idea of the woman in the relationship leaving behind a career, and not just a career, but usually some kind of high powered or high pressured career. And I thought that was very interesting. And so both of those things together made me want to go deeper and explore it a little bit more, especially in the context of fiction where I have a little bit more freedom to play around with things. So that is why I kind of chose to set it with the people I did and in the location I did. And yeah, I didn't do too much of a deep dive into specific influencers because I didn't want it to color my own characters. Like, there's definitely things that I saw go viral that helped inspire parts of this book, but I didn't want it to feel like I was just copying a real person. That doesn't feel authentic or helpful for me as a writer or for anybody as a reader. So I wanted to make sure that Camille and the influencers she followed are kind of their own people. So I like to do a lot of broad research, but I try to hold back on getting very specific or very nitty-gritty because I don't want that to influence how I'm writing my characters and my own story, if that makes any sense.
It makes perfect sense. When it comes to the baby daddy, which is not Graham, but that's not really a spoiler. Um, uh, where did they come from? Because I found that to be so fascinating, as well. Like, I really got almost like a folk horror aspect from it, which was great when married with the whole idea of social media being the thing that drove her desire to live this lifestyle. Social media and other things too. I shouldn't necessarily say that. There were, again, I know I mentioned this earlier in the interview, there were layers and there's reasons, and I really feel like it's very it'd be more emotional for the reader to kind of pick up on it as I did versus me just standing here narrating saying, well, I noticed that Camille remembered XYZ. But it was, but you know, the social media aspect of it, I think like it makes it for certain people seem very appealing and doable. But then you get this folk horror aspect of it, where there's something in the woods, you know, it's almost gothic, right? She's in the middle of the woods. There's something out there. Uh, and it comes together in this really interesting way. So yeah, where did that come from for you?
Yeah, I think most of it came from this sort of trope of demonic pregnancy, which is what I knew I wanted to play around with. And that's not a new trope. I am not saying that I originated the woman gets pregnant with a demon baby. You know, that's been around for a very long time. We've seen it done in a lot of different ways. But I was very interested in flipping that a little bit because I think when we see that trope, we tend to see a lack of consent. And though Camille as a character is someone who looks kind of powerless on the outside, and even for some of the first half or even first quarter of the book, she actually has a ton of agency. She chose this lifestyle. She wants to be a trad wife. She chose Graham. She every choice she makes throughout the book is very defined in her mind, whether or not it's a good choice or a bad choice. She is making those decisions herself. And so to have her interact with this creature, which is kind of what she calls it, she also is a little bit delusional and she convinces herself that it's an angel sent to help her conceive. So this relationship with this creature that she's found is her way of kind of taking back some power or keeping hold of any power she does have. So to have that relationship be not only consensual, but pretty enthusiastically willing, to not go into any spoilers, but yeah, she's into it. And that is an example of her agency. And throughout the book, the ways in which we think Camille might not have any power end up becoming the ways that she does have power. So I wanted to show that despite her situation and the relationship she's in with her husband, she's actually pretty aware, and she has the ability to make these decisions, and to make decisions that are kind of intense and have pretty powerful consequences. So I always knew that the creature and the relationship between Camille and the creature was going to be firmly consensual and was going to be something that was kind of explored almost as like a perverse romance kind of a thing. Like it hits some of the same beats you would see in a romance novel, and that's done on purpose as well, which was actually really fun to write. So that was all very intentionally planned in that kind of a way.
It was a lot of fun to read too, and surprising in a really great way. Um, yeah, I really just enjoyed it as a whole. Like I said, it creeped me out, but it was empowering at the same time. Which was, I mean, again, when I began it and I started feeling those Rosemary's Baby notes, I was like, oh, where is this going? But yeah, it definitely took a different turn. And it does talk a lot, I think, about, like, I don't know, invisible labor. Like Graham's able to just get up and leave and come back and be like, why isn't dinner ready? It doesn't it's very it brings up again like a lot of points about that and about just relationships in general. It really was good. It was one of my
Thank
favorites
you.
so far.
Oh, thank you. I love to hear that.
What are some of the things that you read? Are you a horror reader specifically, or do you maybe have like a secret genre that is not related to this at all?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely read a lot of horror and a lot of thriller because those are the two genres I am publishing in right now. And I firmly believe that in order to write in a genre, you have to read that genre a lot. So that's sort of the primary two genres I read, but I make an effort to read pretty much every genre, including ones that I'm not wild about, because I think that that makes me a more informed reader and a much better writer. So there's pretty much nothing I won't try. Nonfiction's a little bit difficult for me. Sometimes I'm a very plot driven person, but if it's written in a way that I can lock into, I'll do that. I'm not really a romance reader, but I definitely make sure to read romance books a couple times a year so that I just understand the genre, and that's been really helpful in this book and then a couple other projects I've been working on as well, to just know the beats, know the story structure. It's really helpful to just understand all the different genres. And I like to sometimes blend genres too. So that's also really important. You have to be able to understand where the rules are so that you can break the rules.
So you said that this book took you really quick to write. Are you enticed to write something next, or are you taking a little bit of a break?
Um, yeah, so I actually have three books coming out this year. So there's a lot happening right now. I do tend to write quickly, And I am a writer who has a lot of ideas. So it becomes kind of like a conga line in my head of like, who wants to come out first and get written? And yeah, so right now I wrote two books last year. I wrote one in the summer and I wrote one in the fall. And now I'm gearing up to start writing again because I'm on deadline now. So my next thriller, which comes out in June, was what's called like a 2-book deal. So that's the first book, and then I'm still contracted for a second book. So I have to now start writing that second book. So that's sort of what's on my plate now, in addition to the other 2 books that are coming out this year besides Tradwife, which is very exciting. But yeah, it's a lot.
Well, I think I will be reading all of them because this is really well done.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Tradwife comes out. What's the official release date?
February 10th.
So come check it out. Whether you are in a cold place or a warm place, it will chill your bones. And it's very thoughtful. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you
All
so
right,
much.
this was Jessica with Syosset Libraries Turn the Page podcast. My guest was,
Saratoga Schaefer.
and we are going to close this chapter.
It's time to close this chapter of Turn the Page. Join us for the next episode.